And when I woke up, it was a couple days later, and or at least the first thing I remember was a couple days later, and I could speak, and I couldn't move my right hand.
Hey there, Tony Polecastro here, and with me this morning is Pete Huttlinger. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
This is a little bit rare for guitarists, I'm assuming, for myself, to be up this early and have guitars in hand and start playing. Your thoughts on that?
Well, your viewers don't know what time it is, actually.
Good point. It's actually in the afternoon.
It's actually 3 o'clock, and you're right. It is a little bit early for me to be up. It's 3 in the afternoon.
Well, Pete,
no, I had to get up at the crack of 8 this morning, and
and
it was tough because I haven't had a lot of sleep lately, and so.
Well, you played here in Bozeman.
I did.
That was
2 nights
ago. That's right. Mm-hmm. It was a very cool
August
show
5th.
at over at the Live from the Divide, and it was a treat to see you play. I've listened to you. I've heard some really great stuff on your albums, and to see you play was a whole different ballgame. And my first question is, when you play, when you go to a show, when you sound check, you sit down, what's running through Pete Huttlinger's head?
There's a lot of questions there. When I'm doing sound check or when I'm doing a show?
Let's start with sound check, and then let's go to the show.
Well, at sound check, you play. I'm just trying to get a feel for the room and get comfortable with the sound that I'm presented with.
Right.
And sometimes it's 5 minutes and I'm good, and sometimes it's, an hour.
Is there any one thing in sound check that you just have to have, or any specific routine that you do to kind of ensure, like, mentally, I'm there, I'm ready?
Well, the only thing I really have to have is a little AER compact 60 amp that I use, and a Fishman Aura Spectrum DI,
Nice.
and I run that into the amp. And those two, as long as I have those, I can always point it at me and have a good monitor.
Right.
Because that, having your sound is paramount to being able to put on a decent show. If you don't have your sound, if I handed you this guitar and said, "Here, play what you do," you go, "Well, it's different."
Yeah.
Every guitar is different, every room's different, every amp is different. So, I've had situations where I tell them, "You know what? Just turn the monitors off."
Right.
Because they sound so bad. It might be real tinny and bright, and you just go, "You know what? I don't need any monitors. I just turn the amp around, and I'm good."
So you essentially control your entire monitor mix via the AER and kind of...
If I have to.
Okay.
If I have to. It's just nice to know that it's there.
Yeah.
And otherwise, I run out of the back of the AER to the sound system, and that's great.
Nice. Very cool. So then we get through sound check. You're dialed in. You go to do the show. Do you come out with a set list? Do you have do you know what you're going to play, or do you play it by ear? What do you?
Different shows are different. The other night I had a set list, and I sort of stuck to it.
Okay.
I didn't do everything that was on there, and I probably did some things that weren't on there. I generally don't have a set list.
Okay.
I like to just go out and just see. I kind of feel the crowd out.
Sure.
And, if they're wowed by Stevie Wonder stuff, then I'll play more pop tunes. If they're wowed by Celtic music, I'll do more of that.
Right.
I like to go for the wow factor. It's fun, when you hear the audience go, that's a really exciting moment for me.
Sure.
When the audience, or they go, oh my God. That's when I feel like, you know what? I'm doing my job today.
Nice.
It doesn't happen every time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, in response to the wow factor, as I mentioned, I was really inspired by your show, by your playing, and your story. And I want to get to your story, but first I want to ask you. So you came out of the gate when you played your show here in Bozeman, and I was like, whoa. I think you played a Stevie Wonder tune, and then you paired it with a jig. And it was intricate, it was intense, and I'm like, how long did you warm up before you came out?
I've been sitting back there for about an hour.
Okay.
And I probably played an hour and a half or so at the place where we've been staying in Livingston. So I'm not good, when I just come out cold.
Yeah.
I like to play the guitar a lot.
Yeah.
And the more I get to play, the more comfortable I am.
For sure.
Because if I don't have to think about what I'm doing on the guitar, then I can be relaxed for an audience.
Right,
and
right.
and have fun with them.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's and again, what a great show. The tunes and the arrangements that you create and perform are like. I mean, I heard you started the Stevie Wonder song, and I was like, "That's cool," and then it kicked in, and I was like, "Whoa!" So your approach to creating an arrangement specifically for fingerstyle guitar, do you have a method? Do you have like a workflow that you use, or do you kind of say, I got to grab this important part because this is part of the tune, and then I'm going to have my way with the rest of it?
Well, that tune that I started with is called "Isn't She Lovely," and the groove is infectious to me.
Absolutely.
So, for almost the first half of the arrangement, it's just the groove.
Yeah.
I just want to set it up so well, and then when I kick in with the melody and keep the groove going, that's what I'm going for on that tune.
Yeah.
For me, melody is king.
Right.
But with a tune like that, the groove is almost as essential.
Right.
And when
right.
I hit the melody, finally, I think I go through the whole tune once, but there's a thing I do before I even start the groove to the tune to kind of set it all up. And that sort of lays the foundation. And I was going to say, when I start the melody, then the audience, they're like, oh my God, he's doing the melody too.
Yeah.
And he's keeping the groove, and all those chords, they're fairly intricate chords.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
They're what we call $5 chords in Nashville. Those are the fancy ones.
Yep.
And but every tune is different.
Sure.
I play Steely Dan tune Josie.
Yeah.
And that's a tricky one because there's a lot of bass parts in it that are essential, and there's a lot of chords in that song, and the melody. I said melody is king, and it really is. I will leave out chords in order to get the melody in.
Okay.
Although I don't have to, but I mean on that tune, my guitar's tuned to Dadgad right now, so I really can't show you what I'm talking about. But it's that was actually the first tune that I did that started turning people's heads.
Really?
I was playing in restaurants in Nashville, and that's where I did my little solo guitar thing. And I played in rock bands on the side.
Right.
And I was just messing around with tunes, and I remember doing Josie, and I'd see all the heads turn, and I'd go, okay, that's a musician, that's a player, that's a player, that's a player. Because those are the ones who, and I thought, oh, maybe I got something here.
Right.
So I worked up a few more that were kind of like that, and the heads started turning some more. I thought, I think I may be onto something with this whole solo guitar thing.
Well, I'm assuming I've been in Nashville once. I'm assuming when you turn heads when you're playing in Nashville, it's a really good feeling, like doubly good.
As long as they're turning for the right reasons. Yeah, no, you're right. It is a good feeling. Yeah. I mean, I didn't realize at the time, I'd been there for 10 years or so, or maybe 8 years, I guess, when I started doing restaurant things. And I didn't realize just what an intense place it was, the amount of talent in Nashville until I left town. And I go somewhere else, and I'm like, hey, let's play something. And their heads are spinning around, whereas in Nashville, you go, let's play something. And they're like, okay. And they're on it.
Yeah.
Whether it's a swing tune, a jazz tune, a country tune, rock tune, it doesn't matter. They're right there with you. And I get spoiled by that.
Sure.
You really can get spoiled, and you forget that not everyone is at that level of playing.
Right.
So you go to some small town, or even another big city.
Sure.
I mean, I've met players in L.A. and New York, and try to jam with them, and some of them are. I mean, obviously there's great players in those cities. I'm not,
for sure.
Not putting down those cities at all, but I think the concentration of them in Nashville is much greater. Than in other cities.
It definitely it feels like it's that kind of effect of if you surround yourself with really awesome players, the whole level of playing just goes. It just kind of keeps going up.
Yeah, that's right.
Is it a feeling for you? So you've been in Nashville for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Is it as an established guitarist in Nashville, do you still feel that sense of competition, or are you kind of like, I'm doing my thing, this is what I do, take it or leave it?
Well, I'm not trying to be a session guy.
Right.
I tried that, and while I did a lot of sessions, it really wasn't my forte.
Right.
And I didn't love doing it because as an acoustic player, you wind up playing a lot of rhythm.
Sure.
And I like playing the whole guitar.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I found that for me, it just wasn't really my thing, and I probably wasn't the right guy, for the gigs. I don't know. I mean, I have no ill feelings at all about it. It was great fun.
Yeah.
But when I started doing my solo thing, and I realized, okay, this might be my bag.
Yeah.
I do a lot of my work outside of Nashville.
Yeah.
I still have great friends in Nashville, and I love to play with them. But I don't feel the competition because it seemed like I was always competing to get session work.
Right, right.
And I have a studio at my house like everyone else in Nashville does.
Right.
And I've got unbelievably good sounding gear. And so I do sessions for people, but I'm just not hunting that right now.
Right. That's probably a good feeling.
It is a good feeling. It's nice because, in the day I would do anything to get that $100 demo or that $75 demo session.
Right.
And I'd be woodshedding all morning long, thinking, all right, this is it. I'm gonna here comes my spot. I'm gonna be the next guy.
Right.
And then you go and you realize it's just another song. They're all they're great songwriters.
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
good songs, but there's 100 guys like me just waiting to walk in the door.
Right.
And I actually was told that by one guy.
Yeah.
I asked one guy who was a very well-known producer in Nashville, and he said, I asked him one day for if he could give me, I think $75 instead of $50. I had played 12 tunes for him that day, guitar, vocal demos. And I said, could you give me $75 instead of $50? He said, Pete, I got 100 guys who want this job. You want it or not? That hurt.
Yeah,
that really hurt a lot.
So
12 songs. I was there all day.
That's a long day, I'm sure.
That hurt. $25.
So
But that was the reality of it.
Right.
There are 100 guys,
Right.
and they're probably all better than me,
So, so you had mentioned just now. You said that there were 100 other guys just like you, in reference to guitar players. But this week Wednesday, your show, you said that you were, I'm going to try and get this right, I might not, the greatest living guitar player without a pulse.
And I'm sticking to that.
You're sticking to that, which I think is fascinating. And you have quite a story that goes along with that statement. And I'm for acoustic guitar enthusiasts, players, musicians, humans in general, I would love for you to just share a little portion of that story.
Sure.
Because it seems like a pretty shaping thing. It seems like very significant in terms of not only what I'm assuming is your now approach to the guitar and what it feels like to play now.
Yeah, okay. On November 3rd, 2010, I woke up and had a stroke. And it was a major stroke. I was totally paralyzed on the entire right side of my body, and I couldn't speak. And thankfully, my wife was already up, and she heard me in the bedroom groaning and came in thinking I was having a bad dream. And she took one look at me, saw my face was drooping, and she knew. So she called 911. They got me to the hospital, and they did surgery. And they said, we're going to wait and see. He might not speak again. He may never use his right hand again, might not walk. There was a lot of potential for serious disaster. I mean, I had already reached serious disaster. I couldn't speak and I was totally paralyzed.
Right.
And when I woke up, it was a couple days later, and or at least the first thing I remember was a couple days later, and I could speak, and I couldn't move my right hand or my foot. They'd come up to you with a little needle or something and stick it in you, and nothing happened. And nothing happened to my hand, and then there was the I call it the Hallmark movie moment where the doctor said move your right hand, and nothing happened. He turned to walk away, and my finger went, and my wife called him, and doctor, come back. His hand moved, and
Yeah.
the clouds opened up. The orchestra started playing, and from there on, then began a serious struggle
Yeah.
to learn to play again.
I bet.
Because the brain does odd things to us at times, and my ability to fingerpick came back kind of quickly, but these two fingers initially weren't functioning well at all, and then this one still I have a hard time with my ring finger in my right hand. It and of course I told you earlier I stuck a knife in it the other day, so it's kind of black and blue. So that's bad too. You don't want to do that. But anyway, I lost the ability to flat pick. I could do downstrokes, and I couldn't do an upstroke for about a year.
Right.
I just couldn't. I knew what I was supposed to do. I just couldn't do it.
Right.
Or I couldn't do it effectively. Like there was no evenness to it. And so I bought a little jazz guitar, and I played downstrokes like Freddie Green. I just did Freddie Green style chord changes, but then so that was the stroke, and then I'm recovering from that, and then I went into massive heart failure. I've had a bad heart since birth. So I knew that something was going to happen eventually, and I hadn't been doing really well for about the previous year. I'd stopped working out at the gym, and I just wasn't feeling good.
Right.
But I went into massive heart failure, spent a month in the hospital at Vanderbilt, and then they life-flighted me to Houston, Texas, where they installed a heart pump in my heart. And this is where the pulse comes, or the lack thereof. And so this heart pump that sits in my heart, it sits on the bottom in one of the ventricles. But I've got something also that's called situs inversus, which means all my organs are reversed. My lungs are reversed, because you have a 3-lobe lung and a 2-lobe lung. Those are reversed. My heart's on the wrong side. It's also, I think it's backwards. And the chambers are doing opposite jobs. And the way a heart normally works is you have a large ventricle which pumps blood to your body.
Right.
And the smaller ventricle pumps blood to your lungs. Mine are reversed. So what happens is the heart wears out. The smaller ventricle is doing the bigger ventricle's job.
Right.
And it wears out. And that's what happened to me. So they had to put a pump in there, and I carry this bag with me all the time. And it contains a controller and 2 batteries. And I'm hardwired to this. And it goes into my body over here to the heart pump, and it pumps blood for me. I mean, it assists my heart. I'm still there's a part of my heart that's still functioning, but not quite enough to manage on its own. And so the way this pump works, it works on centrifugal motion. So it's a constant flow pump, not a pulsating pump.
Right.
And that took away my pulse. My heart still beats, but not on the part of the heart that pumps to the body.
Right.
So I don't have a pulse anymore, which makes me the greatest guitar player in the world, living without a pulse.
I find that when you started sharing that at the show, and even just now, number one, as a human being, that is like, whoa. I mean, I can't even fathom the road to recovery.
Yeah.
And then you double in the fact that, here's a musician, that's your livelihood. That's what you do that makes you Pete Huttlinger.
Well, that's where my champion enters in, my wife. And when I got out of the hospital from Houston, I was in there for 4 months and a month in Nashville. So I was in the hospital for 5 months. And I got out. I weighed about 125 pounds when I got out of the hospital. So I was really skinny. I looked really old. And my wife would put my guitar out and she'd say, "Hey, why don't you play a little bit?" I'd look at it, I go, "Not interested." I hadn't played with any, there was months where I didn't play anything at all. And when I was in the hospital, I played a little bit, but not much, and it hurt. It hurt to play.
Yeah,
it was like starting over.
Right.
Because I had no calluses.
Sure.
And it was painful. I didn't want to. I was done with pain by that point in my life. If you could imagine.
Reason,
I had a stroke and a heart failure. There was just too much pain. I said, I don't want to do this. And she'd say, "Well, just play for a minute." just play for a minute, and then maybe try again tomorrow. All right, I'm going to play, but I'm not going to like it. I'd play for a couple minutes, it would start to hurt, and I'd put it down for like 2 or 3 days. But she'd strategically put my guitars around the house. I'd have to move it to sit on a chair or whatever.
Right.
Have to get it off the kitchen table to eat my dinner. Yeah. There are these little spots where she would just put them out there, and she was so encouraging. And so there were a number of factors. I mean, she's the greatest factor for my learning to play again, and I have this good friend of mine named Jim Wood. He's a fiddler in Nashville. He actually lives in Shelbyville, which is about an hour and a half from Nashville, and or Flat Creek, as he calls it. And he called me one day. It was October. I got out of the hospital at the end of August, and in October he called me. He said, "How you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm all right." He goes, "How's your playing?" I said, "Not too good." He goes, "Well, I know there's been benefits for you and people giving you money, and I could do that, but I think you'd be better if you were playing." I said, "Probably, And he said, "So I booked 5 gigs for us in December, and so you got a couple months to get your act together, and you'll be playing mandolin mostly on these gigs." I'm like, "Great." I was a guitar player, but he knew I loved playing mandolin too, and he said, "And we're doing a lot of Bach." I was like, "Great." Just, why don't you raise the bar a little bit? Come on, is that all you got?
Right.
And so I did these gigs with him. It was not stellar by any means, but I got through them, and that was a real gift that he gave me by booking some gigs, because I'm real goal oriented. And if I have something to aim for, I do much better than if I'm just sort of wandering around on my own.
Sure.
And having those gigs really made me concentrate on my guitar playing. So that night, we were on the phone. That night, I downloaded all this Bach music, and I started on it that night. And I thought, well, I've got to try it. You don't know what you can do if you don't try.
For sure.
So I did that, and then things started gradually coming back. I still couldn't flat pick worth a darn, and of course I was flat picking Bach on mandolin, an instrument that wasn't that familiar, and it was quite a ride, and but anyway, I'm here now, and I'm playing again. I'm happy as could be.
Good.
You told me you're going to do a marathon or a half marathon in September. And talk about being goal-oriented. When I got out of the hospital, I was working out at a cardiac rehab place down at Vanderbilt Medical Center, and I had found out that there was a half marathon, or it's a whole marathon coming to Nashville. But there's always people who run the whole thing, people who walk the half.
Sure.
And so I told my trainer, I said, I'm gonna walk this half marathon. This was in October, and it wasn't until April. And he said, "Yeah, okay, sure." And there are two great motivators in my life. One is making fun of me, and the other is not believing in me. And I just felt like he had just done both. And
so it was game on.
Of course, it really was. But looking from his standpoint, he deals with a lot of really sick people. So someone saying they're going to walk a half marathon when they can barely walk a mile, and I'm going to walk 13. He just, sure, kid, whatever you want to do. Yeah. You go with that. I'm right there with you. But then as time went on, he saw that I was serious about this, and he kept saying, "Man, I'm going to be there for you. At the end of that race, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there." And he kept telling me, "I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there." Well, on April 29th, 2012, my wife and I and a bunch of our friends walked this half marathon. And that was 1 year to the day that I was life flighted out of Nashville to Houston to get my heart pump.
Wow.
Thank you, Donna and the twins. That's what I call these. And at the end of the race, I went looking for him, and he wasn't there. I was not crushed, but I was a little hurt. So I went back to his place 2 more times to work out, and said, "Okay, I'm good now." Yeah.
That is.
But it was a hot day. It was very hot, and his wife had run it, and she got done earlier. And and he left. And he doesn't know, how it affected me.
Right.
I was not going to go in and complain, hey, where were you when I walked?
Right.
There were 30,000 people there with me. That was good.
Yeah. What an incredible journey.
But I did it. I walked a half marathon, and as far as I know, I'm the only person with a heart pump who has been documented to walk a half marathon. And I was trained to do it this last year, and got another stress fracture in my leg. So I think I mentioned the other night that I'd gotten a stress fracture when I was training for this marathon, and then we were training again this year, and I got another stress fracture. I'm like, really? Maybe this whole marathon thing isn't for me. If I have to break my leg every time I walk one, So I've only got two legs.
This is, what I'm hearing is just this huge underlying sense of drive, and obviously surrounding yourself with encouraging people, because I think that definitely helps.
Yeah.
When you approach taking a total 180 here, you just recently, your most recent album is McGuire's Landing.
Mm-hmm.
When you approach a recording project, do you carry that same sense of drive? What drives you to not only start but go all the way through to the end and finish that recording project?
Well, McGuire's Landing was an interesting project because it's a short story and a CD.
Right.
And, the short story is like 50 pages, so I wrote that, and I wrote every tune on the CD and every lyric on the CD, and it was a long project. It took, I don't know, 7 or 8 years to complete it, because it wasn't something that was on the forefront for me. I just thought, I would write a tune and I'd say, well, this one might go nice with this set of tunes,
right?
And I'd put it by the side, or I'd record it, and then I'd forget about it because I had other things that were that had to be done sooner. Either records that I was doing for myself or for someone else, or I do a lot of transcriptions, so maybe it was that. But then when I got out of the hospital from Houston and I started playing again, my wife, bless her heart, started putting notes from the CD around, like she did with my guitars. Honey, why don't you think about finishing this project? You lived through a stroke, good for you, and you lived, through heart failure, right on. What do you say you finish this project? And so I said, you know what, you might be right. Now this might be the time.
Yeah.
So, and luckily all the tunes that were real chops oriented had been recorded already.
Okay.
There were just like 4 tunes I had left to record.
Yeah.
And then I wrote the story and we got it out. I don't know when, but a while back.
Nice.
And it was a long process. It was definitely the longest project I've ever done.
Yeah.
To take that many years to do it, but it was worth it. I love that CD. I love the story, and McGuire's Landing is somewhere in Montana. I don't know where. There's probably not a sign there anymore.
Right.
But it exists, and it's in Montana somewhere.
So with everything that has happened in your personal life, the fact that McGuire's Landing is done and you got through the whole project spanning all that time, that had to be a huge sense of relief.
Absolutely. It was quite an undertaking for someone who's healthy.
Yeah.
And to be able to finish it is a real gift that was given to me by God or whoever, or the doctors, but somebody. And I attribute that to a lot of doctors and nurses and caregivers and everyone else out there, for making me well enough to be able to finish it.
For sure. I think, I watch you play, and just in jamming here before we sat down to talk, you're a phenomenal player. Tasty, good licks, like just cool chord voicings, like all the good stuff, good tone. But even beyond that, that the story that's paired is just kind of this sense of just drive, and like I hear your story and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to conquer the world. Do you ever feel like, gosh, I need to tell my story to everybody, not just guitarists, but just people, so they know?
Yeah, I do feel sort of a sense of responsibility to show people that I was relatively healthy. I had a stroke and heart failure, and now I'm doing well. I do public speaking about it.
Oh, you do?
My wife and I have written a book
Nice.
that's coming out probably at the end of August.
Nice.
This is 2015, so the book is called Joined at the Heart,
Nice.
a story of love, resilience, marigolds, and guitars. Yeah. And everything in there is significant.
Nice.
And it's a memoir that from the time I had the stroke through the time we walked the marathon.
Right.
And it's pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a good book, and I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah.
I've seen at every talk I've done, people come up to me and they say, "Oh, your story's overwhelming. I broke my leg once," but I tell people, whatever happens to you is big for you.
Right.
Whatever happens to me is big for me.
Right.
But they don't have to be the same. There's not a rating scale.
Right.
Part of my talk is about suicide because there's been a number of those in my family.
Yeah.
And my extended family, a lot. And but I'm okay. Just want to say it right now. I'm okay. But people come up and they say, "My God, all these suicides and the stroke and the heart failure, how do you go on?" And I say, "What are the options?
Right.
What are the options
Right.
to going on or not going on?" Well, I don't want to die, and I don't want to just sit and watch TV.
Right.
So I get up and do what I've always done, and that's find something to do and
Sure.
and figure out how to do it. And I think it's important to share it with people that yes, you can get up and do something.
Right. And this is going to be available through your website, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Because that I just get I get like the shivers. I get motivated when I hear stuff like that. And you said you just got to just get up and go. You got to do it. And it sounds like you keep yourself pretty busy with recording projects. This book that's coming out, and then you also do you keep a fairly active teaching schedule? I heard that you guys do some camps and things like that.
We do camps. I don't do private lessons anymore.
Okay.
We do camps at our house in Nashville, and you can find out about those on our website. And we do one every summer up here in outside of Livingston at a
Nice.
place called Music Ranch, Montana.
Oh, cool.
And that's a guitar and fly fishing camp. So it's 3 days of guitar and a whole day on the river with boats and guides, and everybody catches fish, and it's a really, really fun time.
Nice.
And this year it was tough. These guys, if they weren't eating, they were playing guitars.
Nice.
Thankfully, there were 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
So it slowed them down a little bit.
Right.
But I mean, these guys, they were fired up to play.
Yeah.
And then at night, we were done teaching around 5. We'd have dinner.
Sure.
And then we'd sit up and play till 8 or 9. Just in a circle, just jamming.
Right.
So it was really encouraging for me
That's outstanding.
to see that people want to play so much.
Yeah, I'll say.
And they
holy
want to
cow.
learn.
And then, as far as the fishing goes, do you find yourself, as you've done this camp, catching more and more fish every single year?
Yes, I do. I'm not a very good fly fisher.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you, but I love fly fishing.
Yeah.
Because of the places that you go.
Sure.
There's nothing like standing in the middle of a river or on the bank of a river. In my case, because standing in the river is not too smart with a heart pump. Right. If this gets wet, I'm not in good shape.
Right.
But it's always true to form. The person who's never fished catches all the fish. This year there was a lady with us who had never fished before. She was a little thing, about this tall,
Sure.
100 pounds soaking wet, and she caught, according to her, I didn't see it, but I believe it. She caught 40 fish. She caught a great big rainbow. I mean, it was. The one about the one-armed fisherman, it was about that big. But she showed pictures.
Uh-huh.
She caught a big fish, and that's the way it always happens. I took my brother fishing the other day. He'd never fly fished before, and he caught an 18-inch brown. I'm back there with these little gullies, you know.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
It's the way it goes.
It's about where you are.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's kind of sometimes it's just about being there.
We're floating down the Yellowstone River. I'm okay if I don't catch anything.
Right.
Well, maybe not.
Yeah.
But, I don't have to catch the biggest or the most.
Right. Well, gosh, I want to again. I've thanked you about 100 times this morning, but I really appreciate you taking time out of your time here in Montana and coming down
sure.
and just sharing, kind of what drives you, your story, and everything. And I think we should play because we've been playing around a little bit this morning, and it's been fun.
It has been.
We should just jam.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right.
So you want to tell us a little bit about the song before we
We're going to do two pieces. I'm going to do the first one. We're
Right.
going to do the second one. And the first one is called Troubles a Brewin'.
Okay.
And the second one's called Ashes to Ashes. And these are pieces from McGuire's Landing. And in the story, there's a setup where the bad guy is fixing to make some trouble.
Yeah.
And I won't tell you who dies, but I'll tell you that somebody does. And Ashes to Ashes is the way it goes.
All right.
So here we go. nice.
Nice.
That was fun.
Thank you very much, Pete. I
You're
really
welcome,
appreciate
Tony.
it. Thank you
you.
very much.